Die Anwältin der Pferde, weil Pferde keine Lobby haben.
Hello, I would like to welcome you to this new video, which is once again about to show that in front of the eyes of an enthusiastic audience and many experts present, unfortunately in today's top dressage sport horses are tortured and really tortured. Because pain is inflicted on them that is not necessary. I say this very clearly and I can justify it very well.
It's not just unfortunate moments in time, snapshots, or a lot of half-halts. What we see here has far-reaching consequences for a horse. Fixed nosebands create stress. If there is strong pressure on a bit, a horse will try to move up or down, open its mouth or bite on the bit to avoid pain. The curb bit and snaffle can exert so much pressure on the tongue that the blood flow is reduced or even interrupted. All of this causes pain and severely restricts well-being. Lesions of the tongue and jaw can lead to massive problems with food intake in the long term. Here a horse was placed high and the rider celebrated, although exactly this is what happened here. The tightened noseband caused stress. The horse tried to avoid the strong pressure on both bits by moving up or down, opening its mouth or biting the bit to avoid the pain. The curb bit and bridle exerted so much pressure on the tongue that the blood flow was reduced or even interrupted. The horse even showed a blue tongue at the presentation ceremony. He was caused pain in front of the entire applauding audience, and the horse's well-being was severely restricted. And that was a lot of moments and a lot of so-called half-halts. Dear FEI, is this what you mean by putting the horse's welfare first?
German Animal Welfare Act. Section 1. The purpose of this act is to protect the life and welfare of animals as a result of man's responsibility towards them as fellow creatures. No person may inflict pain, suffering, or harm on an animal without reasonable cause. Section 3. It is prohibited to 1b. To apply measures to an animal during training or at sporting competitions or similar events. 5. To educate or train an animal if this involves considerable pain, suffering, or damage to the animal.
So far, unfortunately not good. So now let's take another look. How colleague has gone to the trouble to mix the pictures that the photographer collected by the matching counterparts in the published videos. The problem with the FEI videos themselves is that they may have been deliberately. You don't know for sure. They only ever put their tests online in a relatively poor video format. This means that you can never get as accurate an insight as you would with the very specific photo equipment. But anyhow, it shows how desperately the horse is trying to escape the extreme pressure being applied to his tongue and his jaw. My colleague, who put this video together, like perhaps many other critics of modern dressage, also was quite upset that Mr. Hess, who presents himself as an ambassador for fine riding, stood quite close to this horse, should actually have seen what we all saw. And he yet praised the whole thing as a dream ride. I'm not even going to talk about what other effects behind the vertical riding has on other regions of the horse's body and its psyche. Because there's another laundry list that you can find in various scientific publications. We are now only talking about the pain that is unnecessarily caused to a horse's mouth. I would like to say that in my observations of the hole behind the vertical rider scene also give me the impression that more and more attempts are being made to make the bridle and bits sharper. In other words, even sharper than curb and snaffle already are. This is achieved by padding the noseband extremely thickly and lashing it extremely tightly, and doing this in places where the blood supply or the exit of facial nerves can be quite unpleasant, to put it like squeezed. In other words, you combine the curb and snaffle with the effect of a serrita, so to speak. And what you also do is pull the corners of the horse's mouth up extremely with the snaffle. And the curb is then placed at some distance from the snaffle, which is actually wrong. It should be buckled in quite close to the curb. In addition, the chin chain of the curb is very often set far too short and too high. This also increases the leverage and pressure to an extreme, and it is also not surprising that the horses, when they try to somehow avoid the pain, get their tongues caught between the snaffle and the curb. Or with the curb itself, the tongue is pinched so far off that there even the blood supply is prevented and successively necrotises before the eyes of the spectators. This evidenced by the fact that it becomes increasingly bluish in color, and it takes a lot of pressure to get to that point. And it's not so that a horse doesn't feel it. It's quite painful. Good. Now let's take a look at this video of my colleague Doris in Extracts, where you can see how Mr. Hess works with the rider and this horse, and he's not that far away. And even we can see here in the video that the horse keeps opening its mouth. He opens his mouth and tries to escape the pain by putting his head up and down, even foaming extremely at the mouth. So a horse that feels good and is not in pain should not do that. Not really. The nostrils are also extremely stiff and large, so not just like this. It's not just the way a horse normally breathes more when it's exerting itself. It's also about stress breathing, and normally a well-trained horse should not have to put so much effort into a Grand Prix competition or a half-hour or hour-long training session that it has to open its nostrils so stiffly, because this bridle creates stress. And the curling and shortening in the neck and behind the vertical riding are also restricting the breathing. And now let's listen to what Mr. Hess himself said about it.
Ein trauriges Wort. Und meine Damen und Herren, haben Sie gesehen, wie sie anfing? Am Anfang war er sich nicht ganz sicher, ist das hier heute Macho raushängen lassen? So eine Stallion Parade? Das kennen ja die Hengste, wenn Publikum da ist, dann wollen die zeigen, was sie können. Dann hast du das unglaublich gut hingekriegt, ihn auf dich zu konzentrieren. Und je mehr er auf dich konzentriert war, desto mehr kamst du zum Loslassen, desto mehr konntest du fordern. In der Klasse Nummer 2, hast du ihn während der Übung geklopft, kamst zum Loslassen, hast unglaublich gute Wechsel geritten, tolle Pirouetten, Passage, Übergänge. Die Übergänge mit der Passage in Kombination ein Traum. Ein ganz, ganz großer Ritt. Großer Applaus für ein großes Pferd, Dr. Ulrike. Und eine ganz sympathische Reiterin aus Norwegen, die seit Jahren macht sie. Ein Traumritt, ein Traumritt. War er sich nicht ganz sicher, ist das hier heute Macho raushängen lassen? Oder Stallion Parade? Das kennen ja die Hengste, wenn Publikum da ist, dann wollen die zeigen, was sie können. Tolle Pferde, tolle Wechsel, und Zweier, der Feder direkt, super Pirouette, tolle Reiter, tolle Taktverstärker, wunderbarer Schritt.
Us. This is a small group of 6 ladies who have been critically following equestrianism in the top dressage sport for a long time, have tried to discuss with Mr. Hess about this test afterwards. I had invited him to do so via video message after he had told us that he hadn't seen that the curb had been wrongly adjusted and exerted much more pressure on the horse's mouth, and that he hadn't seen that the horse had a blue tongue or showed signs of pain. Unfortunately, Mr. Hess has not yet replied. Yes, we'll wait and see. It would be nice if he faced our comments and our arguments in a Zoom meeting like this we had some months ago, because I think that only through dialogue something could change. So as not to make the whole thing too long. It has already become an exceptionally long video. I would like to end without too much commentary by simply showing some examples of studies here without too much commentary. References to videos in which scientists deal with the problem of pain in horses' mouths. And I would like to invite you to take a look at some of them, so that perhaps in the future, even if you yourself are enthusiastic about dressage, which is very understandable that you, even if you are a little further away from the action yourself, can see whether someone is riding in such a way that the horse also feels comfortable, or whether he is actually riding the horse actually causing pain, with his hand in his mouth. I have discussed intensively, and I also invite you to perhaps watch some of my other videos. It's not about bashing dressage as such. It's just that as a dressage writer and spectator and former judge myself, I'd like to say that I don't want to see dressage as a sport in the long to be banned at all, because it could be very beautiful also for the horse. This because also animal welfare activists could see what we are criticizing, arguing that horses shouldn't be ridden at all, they shouldn't be given bits at all, etc. So, have a look at my channel, and if you subscribe to the channel, I don't earn anything from it, but you'll be helping to ensure that more people can watch these videos via the YouTube algorithm, and perhaps understand more about what's going wrong in modern dressage at the moment, and what would be nice if that could be changed. And it can only be changed if the audience no longer accepts it. That this is exactly what happens to the horses. The sponsors realize that their products are associated with cruelty to animals, and then the organizers and everyone else involved in the whole circus. The organizers could be forced to finally do something for the welfare of horses and really intervene, which is what they are currently claiming to do, but don't actually do. That will probably lead to a loss of face for some people. Though I would say that even after many years of brutal rollker riding, I would personally give them credit for that, and I could very well imagine that I would really accept these riders if they were to reorient themselves. At the moment, I cannot accept them riding like this. Good. But now I'll stop talking. I'll let a few more tips and links pass by, and then I'll call it a day and see you next time.